Okay. All right. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Christina Thomas. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions at Johns Hopkins. So I am going to tell you a little bit about Hopkins, let you know what our students are doing sort of in and out of the classroom. And then I'll talk to you about the admissions process and what we look for in applicants. And then hopefully allow you guys to ask some questions. I'd love to hear some questions you might have about our programs, admissions, anything. So you've all visited campus, is that true, right? Okay, so that makes it really easy, but for anyone who doesn't know, we are located in Baltimore, Maryland, so it's only about an hour and a half from here. And all of our undergraduates are on our Homewood campus. So that's what's depicted on our brochures. We have a number of graduate programs in Baltimore and also in Washington, D.C., and actually all over the world, but all of our undergraduates are together on that Homewood campus. So we have two schools. We have the Whiting School of Engineering and the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences. Between the two, we have about 5,400 undergraduates on campus. So we like to consider that mid-size, but honestly, it depends on what other schools you end up looking at, where that kind of fits into your scale. So our average class size ends up being about 24 students, and our student-to-faculty ratio is 8:1. So it is actually a little bit smaller. And so what that means for our students is they have an opportunity to work pretty closely with our faculty. They really get that sort of one-on-one attention. Our students say that they find that they're able to, the faculty are really approachable. They make a lot of time for them. But we are a top research university, so our faculty are doing some pretty amazing things on campus. They're doing groundbreaking research. They're top experts in their field. We have several Nobel Peace Prize winners on our faculty staff. So our students really have access to a lot of really unique opportunities in the areas that they want to pursue. So when you apply to Hopkins, you are just applying to the university. You don't have to apply directly to one of those colleges that I mentioned. But all of our majors and minors that are on the back of the brochure, they do fit into those two colleges. You indicate your first and second choice major. It is used in the admissions review process, but you don't have to officially declare your major until you're on campus. So our engineering students declare by the end of their freshman year, and the arts and sciences students can declare by the end of their sophomore years. So you're not doing extra application process when you get to campus to get into those majors, but just letting you know. So what we're doing is allowing students to kind of take courses around the areas that they're really interested in before officially declaring their major. I have one exception to almost all of my rules that I talk about majors, and that's our biomedical engineering program. So our biomedical engineering is #1 in the country for undergraduate programs. So it's a little bit more of a selective process for us. So what that means is that students do need to declare that on their major or their application coming in. It's not a major that current students can kind of go into. So it's just a little bit more selective on the admissions committee side, but I just let students know that just because it works a little differently than our other majors. So because we're a research university, there are a lot of practical hands-on experiences that our students have access to, but we're also on a liberal arts foundation. So what that means is that we really encourage our students to seek an interdisciplinary education while they're at Hopkins. And we have a very flexible curriculum. So when you're visiting schools, sometimes they talk about their curriculum a little bit. So with us, it means that there aren't a lot of core requirements. We're really allowing students to choose coursework that they're interested in. And so you have the credits that are required for your major, but you have a lot of credits that you actually get to use towards other topics and courses that you're interested in. And a lot of our classes, they'll meet the requirements for many majors and minors. So what that means is 60% of our students actually double major or add minors with their Hopkins. So it kind of allows students to really customize their education a little bit more. So what does that actually look like? So it means we have biology students who are taking archaeology and art history classes. We have engineers who are minoring in business. We have pre-med students who are double majoring in biology and English. We have art history students who are minoring in chemistry, film students who are interested in entrepreneurship. So really crossing between those disciplines. So that's a little bit different. It's a little bit unique. It's a reason why a lot of students say that they chose Hopkins, because they felt like they had that flexibility to take the classes that were really interesting to them. So the reason why we do that is because we find that students are more engaged in the classroom, but also students who are able to make connections across different fields are more successful at Hopkins, but then also beyond. A lot of our students are looking to go on to graduate school, medical school, law school, careers in those fields that they're interested in, and being able to make connections across lots of different fields is actually helping them in those areas. So at Hopkins, our faculty are really dedicated to teaching students how to think, not what to think. So what that means is they're not really as interested in having students sort of memorize facts. They really want to create problem solvers. And so a lot of our coursework, a lot of what our students do in and out of the classroom is around that idea. So in addition to the classes, we do have a lot of practical hands-on experiences that our students have a lot of opportunity to take advantage of. So I'll start talking about the research first. So we're the oldest research university in the country. Hopkins also spends more money on research than any other undergraduate university. So our students, starting their freshman year, really have access to a lot of different research happening on campus. About 75% of our students conduct research while they're at Hopkins, and many of them will be on more than one research project during their 4 years. So the reason why you would want to be involved in research, again, you're kind of taking what you're learning in the classroom and seeing it firsthand, seeing how collecting data, reporting on this information can really make an impact in the field that you're interested in. And we do have research happening across all of our fields. So, of course, we have strong STEM programs. We have a lot of research around that. A lot of our students are doing research at the Johns Hopkins Medical Center, but we also have research that's happening. We have art history students who are doing research in the Baltimore Museum of Art, which is actually right next to our campus. So there's a lot of different areas that students are able to pursue research. So our students say it's really easy for them to find the faculty run research that's happening on campus. There's an online database where they can search and see which projects are already happening on campus, and usually email maybe 2 or 3 professors before they find the right fit for them. But we also actually encourage our students to pursue their own research at Hopkins. So one of the things you can do is through our application process, you can apply for something called the Woodrow Wilson Research Grant. You don't have to have any prior experience around research, but we want students who are, want to pursue something they're really passionate about on campus at Hopkins. So it's a $10,000 research grant given to incoming students so they can pursue their own research at Hopkins. We have a lot of resources for students to develop what that research would look like. And again, we've had students who are really interested in science fields or engineering and want to do some research around that. We've also had students who want to do research around the history of the semicolon. So there's nothing off the table here. We really would just want students to find what they're really, drives them, what they're really interested in, and develop research around that. So in addition to research, we also have a really strong internship network, particularly in the city of Baltimore. It happens to be home to many large companies that employ Hopkins interns in a variety of different areas. So one of the top ones for us is Under Armour. Under Armour is located in the Baltimore Harbor. And they take on Hopkins interns around many different areas, so marketing and communications. Our engineering students are working with their engineers to develop new shoe technology. It was a Hopkins intern that worked with Steph Curry to develop his shoe for Under Armour, so really exciting opportunities there. But it's also home to Morgan Stanley, Black & Decker. We have a lot of startup companies in Baltimore. It's a city of entrepreneurship. We have an innovation center, so we are trying to connect students to those startup companies, and they're providing internship opportunities for our students and collaborating together. And we're only a 40-minute train ride from DC, so we have students that are participating in internships on Capitol Hill, public policy, social justice, lots of different areas that they're interested in. So there's a lot of opportunity for our students. And then even when they're not on campus, we have Hopkins interns at all major companies. So Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, companies that are really relevant to them, that they'd love to see careers in someday, and they are getting careers in those areas. So providing that experience really helps set them up for those next steps even after graduation. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is just that we have a study abroad program, and so we really encourage our students to get a global education while they're at Hopkins. And we make this really accessible in two ways. Number one, we create programs around, study abroad programs around all of our different disciplines. So our engineering majors have study abroad programs for them, where biology students have study abroad programs for them to make sure they're able to take the right requirements even when they're abroad. And also all of our financial aid packages can be applied to our study abroad programs as well. So again, making it really accessible for students to be able to get that world perspective can really change how they're working in their fields. And so our study abroad office, again, it's really easy. You just go in, you can talk to them about programs that you might be interested in, and they'll help set you up with a program that's right for you. So it's a little bit about how our students are kind of learning in and out of the classroom. I also just want to talk a little bit about campus itself. We have a student body that's really engaged in what's happening on campus. So we have 400 student-run organizations. And the reason why I mention this is because when I get to the admissions piece in a moment, we're really trying to bring students who are going to want to come into campus and be a part of things and make an impact on our campus community. So with 400 student-run organizations, we have a little bit of everything, I think. So we have club sports, we have performing arts clubs, so which includes, we have the Hopkins Symphony Orchestra. I think we have 13 a cappella groups as well, but lots of different areas there. And then we have Greek life on campus. We have a robotics club, Model UN. Different cultural clubs, so lots of different ways that our students are engaging. About 83% of our students are participating in a club or activity on campus. And then we also have a pretty strong culture of service on campus. So we really encourage our students to be a part of the different service-based organizations, particularly around the city of Baltimore. So we have an Office of Social Concern, and they oversee 60 different service-based organizations run by our students. So those can include anything from, we have the largest tutoring service in the city of Baltimore, to we have Engineers Without Borders, so sending students to other countries to work on problems like irrigation. And then we do have athletics on campus as well. So we have club sports and intramural, and then at our varsity level, majority of our sports are the D3 level. But our student athletes are really balancing just that, being a student and athlete. I mention this because the student athletes on our campus work really closely with the advisors and the coaches to make sure that they're balancing both. So it's actually our athletes that have some of the top GPAs at Hopkins every semester. I think that's really impressive. And then we do have one D1 sport. Does anyone know what it is already? Lacrosse, yeah. So lacrosse is a very big deal at Hopkins and in Maryland. We have one of the oldest collegiate lacrosse teams in the country, and we've won over 44 national championships. So our homecoming is around the lacrosse game in the spring, not across the football game. But yeah, so those are just some of the ways that our students are really involved in campus. I think one of the other things that I have found to be a little bit unique is we give a lot of ownership for our students on what's happening on campus. So it's a student-run organization that's in charge of bringing the symposium speakers to campus. The university gives them a budget so they can bring in speakers that they want to hear from, which I think is kind of great. And then also major campus community events that we have, a lot of them are run by students who, again, are working with a budget to make sure it's the kind of event that the student body really wants. So the campus itself, you three at least have been there. It's a very walkable campus though, so like from one end to the other, I think it's about 10 minutes. And then we do guarantee housing for both freshmen and sophomores, and we actually require it. And then juniors and seniors do need to move off campus, but our off-campus and on-campus housing is right next to each other, really right around the campus itself. And we have an office of off-campus housing to make sure that students are able to find housing around the campus. And then so those streets around the campus is called Charles Village. And Charles Village to me has like all of the college essentials like Chipotle and Starbucks and Panera, and that's where our bookstore is as well. But we also offer free transportation for all Hopkins affiliates all around the city of Baltimore. So, students who are, doing internships in the city, students who are shadowing at the medical center, which is something that a lot of our pre-med students are doing, have that access around the city. And then we also just encourage our students to get out into Baltimore. I think it's kind of a unique city. There's over 200 different neighborhoods. There's different restaurants and culture and different events that are happening. So, our students, we really, starting in their freshman orientation, we make sure that they're kind of immersed in Baltimore a little bit, because there's just a lot of great things, great experiences for them to have there too. All right, I'm going to transition into sort of the admissions pieces and what we look for our applicants. I know it's a lot of information at once. At Hopkins, we do a very holistic review of our applications. So what this means is, I know some of you are already looking at our stats in the middle of this booklet here. Your GPA, your test scores, they are important, but so are a lot of other aspects of your application. This is why we don't give cutoffs. There's never an application where we say, oh, that GPA or test score isn't high enough, we're not even going to look at the rest of the pieces. We really dive in deep. We spend a lot of time as an admissions committee reviewing all of those pieces. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we review each section, which can give you a little bit of insight and also let you know what are the pieces that you kind of have the most control over as applicants. So the first part is we build what we call your academic character. So the way we do this is we're looking at your high school transcripts, we are looking at your test scores, but also your recommendation letters. So with the high school transcript, we're not just looking at GPAs, we are really looking at the entire transcript. So we want to see the trend in your grades. We want to see what kinds of classes you've chosen to take. Get a sense of who you've been as a student from looking at the entire transcript. Because we read and recruit regionally, we become familiar with the schools. I'm pretty familiar with the schools in Delaware, so I know what opportunities students have for rigor in their coursework, what they're able to take, and we want to see those choices that the students made on their transcript. So the next part is the test scores. So we do require either an SAT or ACT. We do super score them, so if you've taken them multiple times, we'll take the top section of each one so that we can give you your best overall highest score. We don't require any extra tests, so we don't require SAT2 subject tests or anything beyond just the traditional standardized tests. And then the last part of this is your recommendations. So your recommendations are kind of important to us. We really want to get a sense of who you've been as a student in the classroom. So we require 2 teacher recommendations, a guidance counselor recommendation. You can also send additional ones too if you feel that they would strengthen your application. But that's going to give us a better sense of who you've been as a student, what kind of learning experiences you sought out, what kind of questions you asked, and so how engaged you were in the classroom. So we really look at these to be a little bit of the representation of you to us as a part of how you've behaved in the classroom. So. So the next part for us is assessing what we call your impact and initiative. So this is really when we look at extracurricular activities, but really any way that you spent your time outside of the classroom. So, for some students, it's, clubs are involved in, or sports or music or anything like that. Could be volunteer experiences though as well, any leadership roles. For some students, though, honestly, it's the time that they spent outside the classroom were around family responsibilities, part-time jobs, anything, any way that you've spent your time outside. So make sure you're putting all of that in the application. The whole rule around the application is if you don't put it in there, we're not going to know. So make sure that you're putting any way that you've spent your time. We just want to see what experiences you've had, but what you're also passionate about as well. So that should come through even in your writing sections, which leads me to the writing section. So the last part for us, we call it making the match, but it's when we really dive into your essays and writing supplement. So we have 2 writing components to our application. So there's the main essay, which is coming from the application itself. So I think Common App has 5 or 6 different choices in terms of topic. Any of them are fine. But what I want to emphasize is that it's not, for a lot of students, it's not what you've done, it's how you articulate it in your essays. And so what we want to see in your essay is we want to hear your voice. We want to know more about you. The advice that I give students is think about, if we're trying to do a holistic review as an admissions committee, what are the pieces that we have to go on at this point to assess who you are? So we have, application, test scores, recommendations. Think about where maybe there are some gaps, though, where you're not fully represented, that's not all about, who you are and who you've been as a student. Use that to drive how you talk about yourself in your essay. This will really give the admissions committee the most information so that we can do that holistic review. The other piece of advice I want to give, so we at Hopkins, we do something that I found to be a little bit unique, which is on our website, we have a section that's called Essays That Worked. These are essays that were selected by the admissions committee from students who were admitted to Hopkins last year. So it's very relevant, gives you a little bit of insight. When you're looking at them, obviously they're not meant to, for you to mirror the essays. They're also not meant to be intimidating or for you to feel like that's how you have to present yourself. Everybody's experiences are a little unique, but it might give you a better insight to what we're talking about when we're saying, being able to talk about your experiences, being able to articulate, who you are in your essay. So the other writing section is a writing supplement question. It is a question around collaboration. So collaboration is a value for us at Hopkins. We want to bring in students who are able to be a part of the campus, work with other students, work with the faculty. When you've been on our campus, we've created a lot of spaces in our labs, in our classrooms, in our student centers for students to collaborate. So that's a really important value for us. So with the collaboration question, we want to hear your experiences and collaboration. So there's kind of 2 things around this. So number 1, collaboration doesn't always have to be something you did in school. So, it can be, and if you have a great example, use it, but it might also be something outside of that. And the other thing is make sure that you answer the question. So I know it sounds very simple, but we've kind of all had those moments maybe where we worked on something with other people and it didn't go so well and we felt like we had to take it over and take on the project ourselves. But that's not truly collaboration. So we really want to hear times where you were able to work with others to create something and what you learned from that. So if that helps at all. And I think the Essays That Worked page has a few examples of both the essay and the collaboration question so that you can get an idea. So those are all of the pieces of the application. So I'll just talk really quickly about our decision types. So we have 2 decision types. There's early decision and regular decision. I know it gets really confusing. All colleges have all these different variations on this. But early decision, so our deadline's November 1st. Early decision is a binding contract between the student and the university. It means if you're accepted, you are going to be attending. So our early decision students hear back in mid-December. We admit about 40% of our class during early decision. So it's when we have the most seats available. So for students who know, yes, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, then I think it's a good option. But it's not right for everyone, and I understand that too. So you have to find the right fit. So I definitely encourage students, if they're thinking about early decision, talk to anybody who's going to be helping you make those college decisions to make sure that that's a good option for you. But we do, of course, admit most of our class still through regular decision. The deadline's January 2nd, and you hear back in mid-March. And so whether you apply early decision or regular decision, your financial aid package, your scholarship eligibility is the same. So whatever you're going to receive from us, it's not impacted by the type of decision, and you do receive it as part of your acceptance. So with the financial aid, at Hopkins, we meet 100% demonstrated need for all students coming into the university, regardless of citizenship. So that means that I really encourage students as part of the application process to fill out the financial documents. So we require the FAFSA and then also something called the CSS profile. And so the financial aid office determines what a student, what the family's estimated family contribution will be. That's subtracted from the cost of attendance, and then any remaining gap is supplemented with need-based scholarships, aid, merit scholarships, grants, anything else to make sure that the families are able to afford the cost of attendance. So our students coming out of Hopkins actually have much lower loans and debt that coming out of the college than a lot of students coming in from other universities. Last year we gave out $90 million in need-based scholarships. So there is a lot for our students to gain. And what I would encourage you to do, especially if you're considering applying early decision, but in general, use the tools on our website. We have the net price calculator. Most universities have something like this on their website now. You can put in some of your information, academic and financial, and see what an estimated scholarship and financial aid package would look like. So that will give you the best and most information. All right. What kinds of questions do you have for me? I know I talk really fast. Anything about the programs I talked about, anything that you're interested in, application process, anything. Yeah?
All right. What is one thing that you like and one thing that you dislike about Johns Hopkins?
Oh, these are tough questions. So one thing that I like, I might answer these as in conjunction with each other. I think one of the things I don't like, although I understand why it is that there is a perception at Hopkins that the students are, it's really competitive, it's cutthroat, that all the students are like just in it for, finding those next steps. Because what I find is the opposite. I find that our students are amazing. They're doing really incredible things and they are very academically focused. However, they work together really well. So that collaboration I talk about isn't just something as admissions counselors we say. This is something I see all the time. And I work pretty closely with the students in our office, so I feel like I have a good sense of kind of who they are and like what the culture on campus is. And I actually find it to be a pretty close-knit campus. They really do kind of support each other, and there's so much opportunity for them that they're not really competing with each other because there's so much access to the things that they want to do. So I find that they're actually able to connect with each other pretty well and realize like, oh, I was really interested in this, and now this person's coming at it from a different perspective and kind of finding that collaboration. So that's what I like seeing from the admissions kind of standpoint, which is probably different than how the actual students feel about things. But yeah, that's just kind of what I've seen and what I think is really like important as part of the culture there. But that's a good question though. So. Yeah. Any other questions for me? Yes.
So, I want to go into biomedical engineering.
Okay.
So, how
So let's talk about biomedical engineering then. Yeah. So, and when I talk about it, I never want to discourage students from applying when I say that it's more selective. I just want to be really transparent about what that process looks like. So. That is, so what you need to do is on your application, it needs to be your first choice major so that the admissions committee can review you for that. So it's the only one of our majors that you can actually be admitted to Hopkins potentially and not the program, and we will let you know that. So we actually do 2 decision letters around biomedical. It's the only one of our majors. But because of the selectivity, you really can only get into the program as part of the admissions process. It's not something you can do as a current student. You can always opt out of it if you decide it's not for you. But yeah, so that you need to put it as your first choice major. It's also the only one of our majors that if you apply biomedical engineering and you apply early decision, if we admit you to Hopkins, but we can't admit you to the program, we will actually break the binding and give you a small window of time to recommit to us. Because for some students, the most important thing is being at Hopkins, and for some students, the most important thing is being a biomedical engineer. So we kind of work with students to make sure that they have that accessibility, but it's the only one of our majors that works like that. So, and so the profile that we're looking for is still generally the same, but I would say we just spend a little bit more time with our biomedical engineering applicants really looking at those pieces that I talked about. So, make sure any experiences that you've had, anything that you can talk about around that subject, make sure it's really it's in your application so we can review that. But yeah. Your question? It's okay if you don't have a question. So. And I will say, and especially for anyone who's not in the room right now, again, my name's Christina Thomas. I do all the recruitment for Delaware and Philadelphia, so my information is on the website, and you can always email me during the process. So I have students emailing me all the time, even if you just wanted to connect, but also just if you have questions about the application, if you have questions about Hopkins, if you think of something later, please feel free to do that. So.
You say it's Christina Thomas?
Yep, Christina Thomas. So.
Just have to put that in there.
Yeah. It's christina.thomas@ghu.edu.
And I will forward it to all the scholars as well.
There we go. Yeah.
So you have it.
All right. Well, if there are other questions, thank you for having me again, and good luck with your senior year. So yeah. All right.